Welcome to Data Project Hub. In today's video, we will solve a complex SQL interview question. For that, we are going to use a table called as transaction e-commerce table. First, let us go through the table and then let us go through the question. So here is the table, which is the transaction e-commerce table, which has got ID column, user ID column, item, created at, and a revenue column. And now going through the question, we can see that the e-commerce company is trying to identify returning active users. Now, given that the condition for a returning active user is a user that has made a second purchase within 7 days of any other of their purchases. Now, write a query to display the list of users of these returning active users. So, finally, we have to return the ID of users who are the returning active users. So, that is the final result that we have to obtain after writing the query. Now, let us analyze the transaction e-commerce table before writing the query. So in order to analyze the query, let me order the transaction e-commerce table in a particular manner. So what I am trying to do here is I am ordering the transaction e-commerce table first based on user ID column in ascending order, and in the order by clause, the second column will be specified as the created at column. So created at, which is also in ascending order. Now execute this. Then let us analyze the transaction e-commerce table and then let us see what we are finally trying to achieve in this question. So here when going through the query, we can see that the first user ID has got 4 instances, or 4 times he has made some purchase from the e-commerce platform. And corresponding to that, the created at date is also ordered in ascending order. So the latest date will be coming at the bottom of the table with respect to a particular user. Now when comparing each instance, we can see that the first created at date is 7/3/2099 and the second date is 13/3/2099. So the difference between the two date will be within 7 days. So we can see that 100 user ID is a returning user. And then coming down to the next user, which is 101, we can see that he has got two records. And in both the instances, he bought milk from the e-commerce platform. And we can see that the first created at date is 01/3/2099 and the second date is 26/3/2099. So the difference between the two date will be 25. Hence, 101 is not a returning active user. So similarly, we have to run the logic through all the user ID and see that who are the returning active users and who are not the returning active users. So that is the final result that we are going to achieve in this query. So for that, we are going to use two methods in this video. The first method will be based on a window function, and in the second method, we are going to make use of join method without using any window function or any analytical function in order to achieve the same result. So first, let us go through the first method using the window function. So here using the window function, we will start it with a select clause. Select star from transaction underscore e-commerce table. Let us copy the table name and then let us simply run the select star clause, and we have all the columns from the transaction e-commerce table. Now we are going to make use of the window function, which is the lead window function, along with the same result. So here we are going to make use of lead window function, open and close parenthesis, and now write the over clause, open and close parenthesis, and now we will write the arguments for lead function and the over clause. So inside the lead function, the first argument will be the date column, which is created at, and the second argument will be the offset, which is 1, and the third argument will be the null, wherein which null value will be substituted whenever lead function is not able to fetch any valid value. Now in the over clause, we will specify partition, and here the partition will be based on user ID, and now we will write the order by clause, order by, which is based on the created at column, which is in ascending order, and this column will be named as next purchase date underscore date. So this is the new column which we have created using the window function, which is lead. Now execute this and we will get a new column called as next underscore purchase underscore date. Now we will place this query inside a CTE with next underscore purchase. So the CTE is named as next underscore purchase, open and close parenthesis, and the query is placed inside a CTE. Now before running the next query, we will analyze the result that we have obtained. Now we can see that with respect to a partition, here the partition is user ID, For user ID 100, we can compare the created at date and the next purchase date. So based on this created at date and the next purchase date, we can identify the difference between the purchase for a particular user ID for every instance. For that, we will write the next query. Select. Now, we require only few columns only. We don't require all the columns which are item, revenue, and ID column. We require only user ID, created at, and next purchase date. So we will write user ID. The second column will be created at column, and the third column will be next purchase date column. This is the third column. And now we are going to make use of another function which is called the dateDiff function. DateDiff, open and close parenthesis. First argument will be the day. So in the final result, we will get the difference between created at and next purchase date in terms of day. Now the second argument will be created at day, and the third argument will be next purchase date. And this column will be named as diff. And this is taken from the first CTE, which is next underscore purchase. Copy this name, paste it here. Now execute this. Now we have a new column which is created based on the difference between created at date and next purchase date. Now we will place this query inside a second CTE and we will apply a where clause on the result that we have obtained now. Now when we go through the result, we can see that diff is the difference between created at date and next purchase date. So whenever the difference is less than or equal to 7, we can say that that particular user or user ID corresponds to returning user. For that, we will place the second query also inside the CTE. So we will name the second CTE as active users as open and close parenthesis, and this query is also inside a CTE. Now we will write a select clause. Select star from active users, active underscore users, and we will write a where clause where diff should be less than or equal to 7. Also, we have to make sure that the difference should not be equal to 0 in our final result. For that, we will have to add one more condition in the where clause. It is because whenever the person is making a second purchase on the same day, it is considered as a different instance, and when we are using the lead function, we are getting the same record or the same date for that particular created at date. So in that case, in order to remove that particular result, we will write one more condition inside the where clause, that is and should not be equal to 0. So this is the condition. Execute this and we will get record only for which difference is less than or equal to 7 and difference is not equal to 0. So execute this starting from this with close, execute the entire query, and we should get result only for which difference is less than or equal to 7 and difference is not equal to 0. Now in the final result, we require only user ID corresponding to the active users. So for that, instead of star, we will write distinct user ID, and let us also order the result based on user ID, that is order by user ID in ascending order. Execute this and we will get the ID of active returning users for that particular e-commerce platform. So these are the returning active users who are making frequent purchases from the e-commerce platform. So in the first method, we made use of lead function and dateDiff function in order to get the final result. Now in the second method, we will see another method in which we are going to make use of the concept of join in order to get the same result. So before going through the solution, try to solve the question using the concept of join and then watch the solution. So it will help you boost your logical thinking. Now let us move on to the second logic where we are going to make use of join to solve the same question. So now we know the expected result that we have to obtain for the query. So we will write the method over here using joins. So we will start with the select clause, which is based on the transaction table. So let me copy this query. Select star from transaction e-commerce table. Execute this and we will get all the columns from the transaction e-commerce table. Now we will consider the transaction e-commerce table as the T1 table, and we are going to create a inner join with the same table, transaction e-commerce table, and the Name for the second table will be T2. So the alias name for the first transaction e-commerce table is T1 and transaction table second will be named as T2. So this is the two table that we are going to use over here. Now we are going to write a join condition which is based on the user ID column from the T1 table and user ID column from the T2 table. So first T1 dot user ID equal T2 dot user ID. Now we are going to add a second condition, that is and date diff open and close parenthesis, and inside that we will specify the first argument which is day, because the difference should be based on day, and from the first table T1 we are going to take the created at column T1 dot created at comma T2 dot created at should be less than or equal to 7, less than or equal to 7. Also we have to add one more function over here which is absolute, because the result otherwise will have negative values when considering the join condition. Now we does not require all the columns from T1 and T2 table. We require only few columns, which are user ID column from the first table, user ID column from the second table, created at column from the first table, and created at column from the second table. And basically both the tables are the same, but we are naming the two tables as T1 and T2. So the first column is T1 dot user ID as user underscore 1, and the second column is T1 dot created at as CreatedAt underscore 1, and the two other columns are also similar one, which are taken from T2. T2 dot user ID as user ID 2 and T2 dot CreatedAt as CreatedAt underscore 2. So these are the columns which we are going to fetch directly from the T1 table and T2 table. Now we will write one more function over here which is the same function, that is date diff day comma T1 dot CreatedAt comma T2 dot CreatedAt. Copy this, paste it here. Now execute the entire query and let us see what is the result we are getting. Execute this. Now after running the query, we have a result where we have user ID 1 which is taken from the T1 table, CreatedAt which is taken from the T1 table, user ID which is taken from the T2 table, CreatedAt which is taken from the T2 table, and we have another column which is based on dateDiff function, and we will name the column as diff. Execute this once more and we will have the column name also populated. Execute this and we have the new column which is the diff column. Now here also we are going to place the first query inside the CTE. So with active users as open and close parenthesis, place the entire query inside the CTE. We are going to write a second select clause based on the first CTE, select star from active underscore users. So that is the name of the CTE that we have initially defined. So active underscore users, and now we are going to write a where condition where diff should not be equal to 0. That is diff should not be equal to 0, because whenever the dates are same, it will give us the user ID in the final result. If we are not using the where condition diff not equal to 0, so it is necessary that we have to write a where condition diff not equal to 0 in order to remove the users which are making multiple purchases on the same day. So execute this and we will have the records only for which users are making continuous purchase, and the users will be returning active users. Now we don't require all the columns in the final result. So in order to remove that, instead of star, we will write distinct user underscore 1. Execute this and we will get the same result which we saw in the initial query using the window function. Execute this and we have the same result which we have obtained in the first query using the window function. So the returning active users for the e-commerce platform are 100, 103, 105, 109 and 128. And all these users are actively making purchase from the e-commerce platform within a gap of 7 days. So these are the two methods which you can use to solve the question. Hope you like this video. Thanks for watching and subscribe for more. Thank you.